Hello, everyone. She was discovered in a grocery store. No makeup, no plan, no idea she was about to become one of the most quietly powerful forces in fashion. Carmen Kass did not enter the industry with fire. She entered like ice, unmoving, unreadable, untouchable. Her face did not beg, it commanded. She became the woman who never smiled on the runway because she understood that silence could speak louder than seduction. Estonia had given fashion a mystery, and the world did not know how to look away. But behind the fierce symmetry and legendary poise was a girl raised under Soviet shadows, who would one day lead not just in heels, but in politics. So who was Carmen Kass, and how did a girl from a forgotten republic become one of the coldest, most calculated, and most respected queens of the runway? Carmen Kass was born in 1978 in Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, a country still caught in the gray grip of the Soviet Union. Hers was not a childhood of abundance or color. It was a life shaped by restriction, repetition, and silence. The state defined beauty, defined ambition, defined everything. And yet, somewhere inside that world of sameness, Carmen stood apart. She was tall, lean, with features too sharp to be softened, and a presence that made people pause without knowing why. She grew up in Paidi, a small town far removed from the glamour she would later embody. Her family lived modestly. Her mother worked as a chess teacher. Her father was largely absent. Carmen learned independence early, not because she was bold, but because no one was coming to guide her. She walked to school alone, ate in silence, spent hours staring out windows, thinking in languages she had not yet learned. There was nothing in her early life that hinted at superstardom. Estonia was not on the fashion map. There were no agents, no editorials, no dreams of Vogue. But there was something in her, a stillness that read as strength, a quiet defiance, a girl who knew how to endure without making noise. She was 15 when a modeling scout noticed her in a grocery store. The offer sounded ridiculous. New York, Paris. It felt like someone had cracked open another universe. But Carmen said yes, not out of desire, but out of calculation. This was not about fantasy. It was about escape. And when you are raised behind walls, even the thinnest crack is enough to start walking. Her mother was hesitant, but Carmen was unmoved. She boarded a plane with almost nothing. No language, no connection, no roadmap, just bone structure, determination, and a resolve forged under Eastern European cold. When she arrived in Paris, she was invisible. Another face, another name no one could pronounce. She was told to smile more, to soften, to sell herself. But Carmen did none of that. She remained unreadable. She let her stillness do the speaking, and slowly the right people began to notice. Her look was not marketable. It was mythic, alien, clean. She was not a muse. She was a silhouette. And in a world beginning to tire of performative charm, Carmen Kass became the antidote, a woman who asked for nothing, and in doing so, demanded everything. Her childhood did not prepare her for fashion. It prepared her for survival, for long waits, for silence, for precision, and in an industry where many came looking for themselves. Carmen had already learned how to disappear until the world came looking for her. Carmen Kass did not chase fashion. She approached it the way she approached most things in life, quietly, with calculation. After being discovered at 15 in a grocery store, she said yes without flinching. Not because she dreamed of the runway. She did not, but because she recognized opportunity, and Carmen Kass always knew how to play the long game. Her first steps into modeling were not glamorous. She arrived in Paris with minimal English, no experience, and a stare that unsettled more than it invited. Agents liked her, but they did not know what to do with her. She was too serious, too silent, too clean. She had no sparkle, no need to charm. But there was something undeniable about her presence. She entered a casting, and it felt like someone had opened a window, cold air, sharp light, a silence that stayed long after she left the room. For a while, she hovered on the edges. She booked small shows, minor shoots. She was professional, punctual, and terrifyingly focused. She did not party. She did not flirt. She watched, observed, studied how the room worked, how the power moved, and where she could insert herself without asking permission. The breakthrough came when she was noticed by the right photographers, people who did not want another bubbly blonde, but something more sculptural, more severe. Her first major campaigns came not from a burst of fame, but from precision. Designers like Calvin Klein and Donna Karan saw what others missed, that Carmen's restraint was not a lack of expression. It was elegance distilled to its most exact form. Then came Vogue. When she appeared on the cover of American Vogue in 1999, the effect was immediate. She did not look like a supermodel in the traditional sense. She looked like a statue, carved out of snow and shadow. Her face was not selling anything. It was daring you to find meaning in the silence. Anna Wintour recognized her as part of a new generation, one that did not need to explain itself. Carmen Kass was no longer background. She had become the frame. Suddenly, she was everywhere, walking for Gucci, Chanel, Dior, and Alexander McQueen, fronting campaigns for Michael Kors, Versace, and Givenchy. But even at the height of her exposure, Carmen remained curiously distant. She gave the industry everything except access. There were no public meltdowns, no behind-the-scenes feuds, no hunger for celebrity. Carmen did the work, delivered the image, and disappeared. And that was the difference. While others played the role, Carmen held the mirror. She made the clothes look important, not herself. She made fashion feel cool again, not from attitude, but from discipline. Editors called her clinical. Photographers called her perfect. But she never seemed interested in the compliments. Carmen Kass was not trying to be remembered. She was simply impossible to forget. By the early 2000s, she had reached the top without ever seeming to climb. No scandals, no reinvention, just cold precision, delivered over and over again. And in a system that rewards chaos. Carmen became the anomaly, the woman who mastered the game by staying still while everyone else ran in circles. By the early 2000s, Carmen Kass had become the woman fashion turned to when it needed elegance without effort, attitude without chaos, and beauty that did not beg for approval. Her golden era was not marked by a single moment. It was a stretch of time where she became inevitable, the model who brought gravity back to a world that had become too loud, too thirsty, too predictable. She dominated runways with a walk that was almost mathematical. No sway, no drama, just a sharp, relentless forward motion that made even the most extravagant couture feel disciplined. At Gucci, she brought restraint to Tom Ford's sensuality. At Chanel, she gave coolness to the Baroque. At Dior, she made fantasy feel modern. There was no show she could not elevate simply by walking through it like she was late for a meeting she did not care to attend. Photographers adored her. They called her the easiest face to light, the cleanest silhouette to frame. Her bone structure did not need contouring. Her angles did not need retouching. In front of the lens, she became what fashion had been missing control. The ability to hold space without needing to fill it. The refusal to charm when presence alone was enough. She graced the covers of Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Numero, AD, and W with the same unreadable expression, a face that never gave too much, never tried too hard. And that lack of need became a statement in itself. While other models chased relatability, Carmen Kass leaned into distance. She was not here to be liked. She was here to show you what precision looked like. Her most iconic campaigns for Calvin Klein, Michael Kors, and Versace solidified her image as fashion's ice queen. but there was no arrogance in her posture, just quiet certainty. She was the woman who had nothing to prove, and yet proved it anyway, every single season. Outside of fashion, Carmen made headlines in unexpected places. She ran for European Parliament representing Estonia's Res Publica party, shocking those who believe models should stay in their lane. She co-owned a chess club. She discussed economics in interviews. She disrupted every stereotype the industry tried to hang on her, not with rebellion, but with calm intelligence. Her golden era lasted longer than most, not because she reinvented herself, but because she refused to be reduced. Carmen Kass became the face of restraint, of discipline, of the kind of confidence that does not perform, it simply is. And that, in the chaos of the early 2000s, made her untouchable. Carmen Kass never bent, not to the industry, not to fame, not even to fashion's obsession with reinvention. In a world that rewarded spectacle, she chose stillness. And in doing so, she became the blueprint for a different kind of supermodel, one who did not entertain, did not explain, and did not need to be understood to be remembered. She refused the emotional accessibility that became expected of models in the 2000s. No behind-the-scenes vulnerability, no curated relatability. Carmen offered only what was required: the image, the walk, the presence. The rest she kept, and that was the difference. She did not give herself away to stay relevant. She gave just enough to remind the world she was. Her face broke the rules of commercial beauty, angular, minimal, cold, some said. But Carmen made cold a compliment. She stripped away the decorative softness expected from women and replaced it with precision. Her gaze never begged. Her body never performed. She made fashion confront itself what it really meant to project power without seduction, to embody elegance without decoration. Off the runway, she did something even rarer. She entered politics. In 2004, she ran for a seat in the European Parliament, representing a centrist party in Estonia. It was not a stunt. It was a statement that a woman known for her face could also be trusted with ideas. The campaign shocked fashion journalists. Models did not run for office, but Carmen Kass had always moved in contradiction. She disrupted not with volume, but with clarity. She also became co-owner of a chess club, not a brand, not a product line, not a lifestyle blog, chess. A quiet, cerebral game that mirrored how she moved through fashion deliberately, precisely, never for show. While others were launching perfumes and posing for paparazzi, Carmen was investing in strategy, in stillness, in long-term vision. She aged without apology. When many around her began chasing youth, she remained composed. Her face matured, but her gaze sharpened. She accepted fewer jobs, but the right ones. She showed up less often, but with more impact. She did not try to outpace time. She moved with it quietly, powerfully, unbothered by the noise it carried. Carmen Kass defied the standard not by breaking it, but by walking around it like it was never hers to answer to. She proved that control could be elegant, that silence could be intimidating, that distance, when earned, becomes its own kind of closeness. She was never designed for mass appeal, but she was built to last. And in an industry that chews through beauty by the season, Carmen Kass stood still and watched it spin around her. Carmen Kass did not crash. She faded deliberately, almost imperceptibly, like someone slipping out of a room without needing to announce the goodbye. There was no scandal, no meltdown, no desperate reinvention. She simply chose distance over saturation, silence over survival tactics, and in doing so, rewrote what it meant to step back from an industry that never stops demanding more. Her withdrawal was not about failure. It was about fatigue, years of walking under lights, of being dissected for perfection, of living on planes and backstage call sheets had taken a toll. Carmen never showed the weight in public, but even steel bends in private. She had been composed for too long, for too many people, and eventually, She needed space to simply be without being seen. Fashion, always hungry for fresh, moved on. Younger faces appeared, newer names filled the runways. But Carmen did not chase them. She did not compete, she did not compare. Instead, she retreated not into disappearance, but into sovereignty. She returned to Estonia. She gave more time to politics, to local causes, to the quiet rhythm of life beyond flashbulbs. The girl who once escaped a gray republic had come full circle only now. She returned not as a ghost, but as a woman who had made the world bend briefly to her silence. The pain came not from losing relevance, but from realizing how rarely fashion had made space for her full self. She had been mythologized as perfect, sculptural, composed, but rarely allowed to be tired, messy, aging. She gave the world her precision, and it thanked her by refusing to let her change. And so, she changed in private. Her political ambitions did not unfold as planned. She lost the election. The media questioned her motives. Some dismissed her as another model trying to play serious. But Carmen never responded to the criticism. She had spent her entire career saying more by saying less, and even in defeat, she carried herself like someone who had nothing left to prove. She still modeled occasionally, for brands that understood her value, for projects that aligned with her pace, but she no longer belonged to the machine. She no longer needed to. Carmen Kass had already done what few could. She had risen without selling herself, ruled without noise, and left before the industry could write her ending for her. Her fall was not tragic, it was strategic. And in a world that rarely lets women exit on their own terms, Carmen stepped away with the same control that once made her unforgettable. Maybe Carmen Kass was never meant to be a star. Maybe she was meant to be a presence, the kind that does not burn, but freezes time. When the world looks back on fashion's coldest and most brilliant years, her face will be there. Not smiling, not seducing, just watching. She left behind no tabloid trail, no dramatic fall from grace. What she left behind was more precise, a new vocabulary of power, defined by control, silence, and refusal. Carmen Kass proved that you do not need to sell your soul to be seen, that elegance is not something you wear, it is something you protect. Her legacy is not just in the campaigns or the covers, but in the blueprint she offered to every woman who came after. You can move without apology, you can walk without explanation, you can lead without performing softness, and maybe that is the most radical part. Carmen Kass did not demand a stage. She made the room adjust to her rhythm. She was the pause in an industry addicted to momentum, the cool breath between trends, the long game in a short attention economy. She did not vanish, she recalibrated. And in doing so, she became the kind of icon who does not just model fashion, she models freedom.